Well, guys, one of the other things I said I was going to look at was try and figure out why the heck this hand wheel, when you rotate it, is so out of whack, wobbling, because it doesn't look good at all when it does that. Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with this homemade wheel that the previous owner made. The shaft itself. This shaft itself is actually bent. If I move this back and forth, I can actually watch that thing move like crazy. And I don't know if I even want to think about trying to do anything with this. I mean, the back side of this shaft has a gear on it. The only thing I could figure I could do is I could maybe find out where the high spot is and maybe just give it a tap. So what I could do is I could put an indicator base right here, put an indicator on this, indicate, find the high spot, wait until the high spot is right on this side, and then just give it a whack that way a little bit. Problem is, if I hit that too hard, I could break this casting. Yeah, I don't like that. Well, the other thing I could do is I could grab it with a pair of pliers and try and bend it back. But yeah, that's not a good idea either. Probably the right way to take care of this, if I do want to try and bend it back, would be to take this out of the apron. You know, I don't think it's very hard to take this apron off, as I recall. Well, it turns out that removing the apron required sliding it off the end of the tailstock, off the bed, which required removing the tailstock, removing the support bracket for the lead screw and the washers on the end of the lead screw, because they won't clear this hole that goes through right here. And I took the lead screw out because I didn't want that just hanging out. And it was sliding out and going to fall out anyways. So now I can take this whole apron right off. That's just the jib, nothing to get excited about. Alright, and I've got to take, no I don't. I thought I was going to have to take the key stock out. And as long as I've got this in my hand, I'm just going to examine these teeth. See if there's a broken tooth on here. And there's not. It's just a sloppy gear train. Stick that back on there just for good measure. Alright, so I put the shaft in a little V-block on my bench, and I don't even need an indicator to see how out of whack this is or where the high spot is. I rotate this around. But the good news is that if I rotate it so that the keyway is facing pretty much straight down, the shaft actually looks pretty straight. And when I go 180 degrees from that, straight up, it also looks like it's pretty straight. Compared to if I rotate it so the keyway is facing me, it's definitely pointing down. The shaft is going towards the table, and when I do it 180 degrees away, right about there, it certainly looks like it's going up. So that means it's really bent in only one direction and not two directions. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and tap this back into position. So I'm just going to hold this adjustable parallel along the top of this so that we can see that again. You can kind of get an idea that this is a little high. So it looks like right about there's the high spot. That's the low spot there with the keyway facing towards me, so I actually was wrong about that. Or was I? No. I said that up it was good. Yeah, up and down pretty much match, so. Alright, so I cut a little piece of metal flashing, and I'm going to wrap the machine part of the shaft with that. And I'm going to clamp this in the vise, and the gear is going to be below the jaws so it won't get harmed. And I marked the shaft high spot with a Sharpie, and so I want that mark to be facing that way. That's it. Now I'm going to put the nut on here. And flatter the nut facing that way. And now I want a persuader. It does look a little better. That's quite a bit better visually. Let me put it in the apron and see how it looks. That's a lot better than it was. And I'll tell you what, the little bit that it's still out, I think if I keep hitting it, I might get it a little bit closer, but I could also easily start going the other direction and reach the point of diminishing returns. And also, you know, every time I whack that thing, I stress the metal a little more. I think that's good enough. But I'll tell you what I do want to do is change this handle. This is a little too small for this job. And like I said, it should have been made a little bit bigger so they could recess this head of this screw that's holding it on there. It's also kind of sloppy. So I just grabbed this. I could see this hole was threaded. It looks to me like what the person who made this did is actually took a head screw, turned the head off the screw, and then I think I could see a slot in the backside here. He may have actually slotted it so that he could turn this with a screwdriver and tighten it from the inside. But if I grab this with channel locks, I can actually just unscrew it. So what I want to do is I want to make a new one of these handles and try and mimic the design that I came up with for the handle on the crossfeed handle repair, and put that in here. Problem is I don't like this bolt hole is much bigger. Hopefully I've got something that will thread into there this size that's got a cap screw type of head. Well, I was only able to find 2 socket-headed cap screws that fit this hole, and this one, once I thread it in, it's going to be way too short to put a jam nut on and still have enough of this actually in the handle to make the handle not wobble too much. This one's too long, but I can always cut this one down if I need to, so I think I'm going to use that one. Alright, so I'm going to make a copy of this, but I'm going to have to make it a little bit bigger. Thicker anyways, because the head on this cap screw is larger, so I'm going to have to make the counter bore larger, and because I still want to have kind of this profile on the end here, this is just going to have to be a little bit larger. So we'll see what I've got for stock. Well, lo and behold, I actually have this piece of stock that I originally used to do my test turnings on the Vernon lathe, and this dimension's already approaching where I want to be for this thing. So once because when I put this in the chuck, it might not be turning concentric perfectly anymore. Once I do a cleanup cut on this, I'll probably be right at the OD I want to be at. And this has got plenty for me to chuck on. Chuck on? Really? Is that a word? Alright guys, I'm getting ready to make that new handle. And what I did was I determined that the diameter of this handle, this part right here, is 625 thousandths larger than the diameter of the other handle that I already made. So it's a difference of 0.625. So I determined by dividing 0.625 into 3,000, which is 3 inches, that it goes into 3,000 4.8 times. And then I was able to convert that. I actually forgot how I did all the math, but I ended up figuring out that this handle is 21%, or it's 20.83% larger than the handle I already made. So, if this OD is 21% larger than this OD, then if I take the dimensions that I used to make this handle right here and make them 21% bigger, I should get a handle that's proportionally pretty right on for this handle, or this hand wheel. Does that make sense? Well, we could try it, and then, worst case scenario is if it looks too big, I can always cut it down. Alright, so my overall length is going to end up being 1.7 inches. Just double checking now, the bevel is coming out. It's about 2/3 of this length right here is beveled, so right now I'm not quite there. Doesn't look too bad. Nope, that's not how I want to cut that back bevel. Well, I do have some finer sandpaper. Oh, that's better. It's not a highly polished finish, but neither is the other handle. I'll tell you what it is, though, it's hot. It's hot. That's interesting. Well, that hole that my 11-year-old assistant drilled for me last night, it's grabbing the drill bit and really taking it off center, so I'm going to run a larger center drill in there and see if that can't correct the issue. It's better. Figure out how far in I gotta go. It's funny, I was just messing with the calipers, and they're kind of cumbersome to get in there. And it occurred to me, why not just use a set of these dividers? I've got plenty of them. So I want to go in, let's see, a total depth of, well, there's the length, but then I've got to go a little past it to account for the length of the taper on the end of the drill bit there. So that would do it right there. Alright, so all I gotta do is, let's see, I think what I'll do is I'll run in my tailstock till the quill is flush with the end. And then I'm gonna bring this up to there, lock it, and now I can just watch as the get this out of the way of the camera. So I brought the end of my quill in flush with the end of the front of the tailstock. I brought the tip just up to where it's even with the outside there. So now all I have to do is I got these dividers already set to my depth. So I'm going to run this in until this much of the quill is exposed. Let me get some lubricant. That'll do it. Oh, I'm not done yet. I forgot I got to spot face this for the carriage bolt head to recess in. Well, I have a counter bore that I think is the right size, but unfortunately I don't have a pilot for it. That's the size of the hole that I just drilled, so I'm going to try and run this counter bore without a pilot and hope that it goes straight. It doesn't look bad, which is shocking considering how much it appeared to be jumping around. And I'm almost there now, so probably could have not had this extending from the chuck so much. That might have helped. Oh no, that's as good as it gets. Bet you when it's held in a collet, it's much better. I thought you were already gone.
No.
Time is it?
4:30.
All right, you have fun.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm just going to chamfer the edge of that hole like I did on the other one. I think I did. Yep, I did. Hey, I actually ran it back so far. I loosened the chuck. There we go. Okay. Now I got to remount my cutoff tool, square it up, cut it off. All right, all I got left to do now is cut it off, and I just checked the center height of the cutter and found out that it was actually a little bit high. It was a little bit above center, which I guess that really messes up with the clearance on that cutter. So I think that might have been why I was having so much trouble notching that groove earlier. Alright, so I'll just get a measurement here of how much I want to take off at the end of this bolt. 225 total I'll take off. Alright, so there's a good look at the completed handles. You can see this one's still a little wacky because I wasn't able to perfectly straighten out that bent shaft. I did make it a lot better though. And from this angle you can see I was pretty successful in matching the profile of the two handles.